of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The night the debate was announced, it didn't feel like a normal event. It felt like a headline waiting to happen. In the heart of India's biggest city, a massive indoor arena was packed wall to wall, the kind of place you'd expect to host championship fights or major concerts. Floodlights swept across the crowd like search beams, and the sound of thousands of voices blended into one constant roar. On stage, a polished platform stood under bright white spotlights, with 2 chairs and a small table between them. Cameras hovered at the edges, and huge screens above the audience replayed reactions in real time. People were chanting, clapping, whistling, some hyped, some angry, some just hungry for drama. It was the kind of atmosphere where you could feel the tension crawling under your skin. Then he walked out. Banti Yadi Pandey wasn't just any monk. He was famous, feared by some, admired by others, and known for being brutally direct. In public debates, he had a reputation for humiliating people with sharp words and aggressive confidence. He stepped to the center of the stage like he owned it, holding the microphone with calm authority, his expression cold and unshaken. His voice boomed through the speakers. "Islam is spreading fast in this country," he declared, scanning the crowd as if daring them to blink. "And I will not stay silent. Tonight, I will prove that Islam is false." The crowd exploded, applause and cheers rising like thunder. A few people waved signs. Others laughed like the outcome was already decided. Banti lifted his chin. "If you Muslims have courage," he said, "send someone up here. Young or old, man or woman, it doesn't matter. I will expose the mistakes in your book and destroy your beliefs with logic." He paused, letting the words soak into the room. "Come on, show me what you've got." The audience howled. Some shouted insults toward Islam like it was a sport. A group near the front laughed loudly, pointing at the empty chair across from Banti like it was proof no one would show up. The air felt hot, electric, almost aggressive, like a storm waiting to break. But then something happened that no one expected. From the far back row, a small figure stood up. At first, people didn't even notice. He was just a kid, tiny compared to the adults around him. He moved slowly down the aisle, step by step, walking toward the stage with the calm confidence of someone twice his age. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old. He wore simple white clothing, clean and modest, and he held a Qur'an tight against his chest like it was the most valuable thing in the world. As he walked, the laughter faded. The noise didn't stop all at once. It drained out of the arena in waves, like the sound was being pulled away. Heads turned. People leaned forward. The screens caught his face, and suddenly he was everywhere. On every camera angle, on every display, his innocent expression calm and steady. Even Banti stared, confused at first, then amused. The boy reached the steps and climbed onto the stage without hesitation. The security staff looked unsure, but the organizers didn't move fast enough to stop him. He approached Banti respectfully, lowered his head politely, and then sat in the debate chair as if this was exactly where he belonged. A burst of cruel laughter ripped through the crowd. "This is a joke," someone yelled. Another voice shouted, "Muslims ran out of people, so they sent a child." More laughter followed, louder than before, but underneath it, something had shifted. Curiosity had crept in. People didn't want to admit it, but they wanted to see what would happen next. Banti smiled wide, pointing at the boy like he'd already won. "Are you serious?" he said into the microphone, his tone dripping with mockery. "This is what Islam has left? A little kid? You brought a child to face me?" The boy didn't flinch. His breathing was steady. His hands stayed calm on the Quran resting in his lap. Then he looked up, and when he spoke, his voice was soft, but it carried through the arena like silence with weight. "My name is Hanan," he said, "and I didn't come here to play. I came to protect the honor of my faith." The arena quieted again, not because people suddenly respected him, but because they couldn't ignore him anymore. His words didn't sound like a child's words. They sounded like someone who knew exactly why he was there. Banti's smile faded into a tight smirk. "Fine," he said, leaning forward. "Sit there, boy. I will crush your religion with reason. But before Banti could launch his attack, Hanan raised one small hand, a gesture so calm it felt like someone pressing pause on the entire room. Before you insult my faith, Hanan said gently, I want to ask you one question. Banti narrowed his eyes. Go ahead. Hanan held his gaze and asked, quietly but clearly, why do you worship cows? The question hit like a lightning strike. The arena froze, not a dramatic freeze, an actual shocked stillness, the kind that happens when a crowd suddenly loses its script. Banti's face tightened. For the first time all night, his confidence flickered. We don't worship cows, Banti snapped, trying to recover. We respect them. They give milk. They represent purity. Hanan nodded slowly, like he was listening carefully. Then he spoke again with a calm that made his words feel heavier than the microphones. If something is respected because it gives benefit, Hanan said, then the one who deserves the highest honor is the one who created that benefit, not the creature that merely carries it. A strange sound moved across the audience. No longer mocking laughter, but uncomfortable murmurs. People shifted in their seats. Some stared at Banti, waiting for him to fire back. Banti forced a laugh, but it sounded thin. All right, he said, raising his voice. Enough about symbols. You want to talk about God? Let's talk about God. He pointed at Hanan. You claim your God is one, absolute, all-powerful. Prove it. Hanan opened the Qur'an on his lap, not as a weapon, but as a guide. He didn't quote a verse word for word. Instead, he explained the core belief in a way even a child could understand. Islam teaches that God is perfectly one, Hanan said. Not divided, not born, not needing anyone, and nothing in existence is equal to him. He looked around the arena, his voice steady. Isn't that simpler than believing divinity is split into many forms? The silence deepened. Even some of the people who came to cheer against Islam were listening now, faces tight with thought. Banti inhaled sharply, his eyes scanning for an opening. Then answer this, he said, voice edged with sarcasm. If your God is real and powerful, why doesn't he show himself to everyone? Why not appear in front of humanity so there's no doubt? Hanan didn't rush. He didn't panic. He smiled small, calm, and controlled. Because faith has meaning only when it's chosen, Hanan said. If the truth was forced onto everyone's eyes, it wouldn't be belief. It would be pressure. He paused, letting the idea settle like a stone dropped into water. And life, he added, is a test of what we do with what we're given. Banti leaned back slightly, his expression tightening as the crowd stayed silent, waiting, and for the first time, no one was laughing anymore. Banti's smile tightened, and he leaned closer to the table as if stepping into the boys' space could reassert control. The arena stayed unusually quiet, and thousands of faces watched him with the same attention they would give a judge about to deliver a verdict. He lifted the microphone again, forcing a casual tone. So you're saying life is a test, he said. Fine. Then explain this. If your God is testing people, why is there so much suffering? Why do children get sick? Why do families lose everything? Where is mercy in a world like this? Hanan didn't blink. He didn't look offended, and he didn't sound angry. He spoke like someone answering a sincere question. Because this life isn't the final chapter, he said calmly. It's a passage, not the destination. The cameras zoomed in on the boy's face, and the massive screens above the crowd showed the same steady eyes and quiet confidence. People in the audience shifted in their seats, and the earlier mocking energy faded into something closer to nervous curiosity. Hanan rested his hands on the Quran and continued in a clear, gentle voice. Islam teaches that hardship can be part of the test, he said, and it also teaches that true justice doesn't end at death. Some answers come later when everything is made right. Banti's brows twitched with irritation, but he kept pushing. Convenient, he snapped. So you push all justice to the afterlife. But if your book is perfect and your guidance is real, why isn't the world already better? Why are people still broken, hungry, and desperate? Hanan nodded slowly, as if he expected that line of attack. Because guidance isn't a magic trick, he replied. It doesn't erase consequences. It shows people how to live, how to treat others, and how to make choices that protect society. The arena felt like it had turned into a courtroom. Every word echoed longer than it should have, and every pause felt like it weighed something heavy. Banty leaned forward, voice sharpened into a challenge. So you admit humans are the problem, he said. Then your religion failed to change them. Hanan answered without raising his voice. If someone refuses to follow instructions, he said, you can't blame the instructions. He tilted his head slightly. If a doctor makes a mistake, do you say medicine is false? If a judge is corrupt, do you say the law is worthless? You hold the person accountable, not the truth. A burst of applause broke out from somewhere in the middle rows. It wasn't a full roar yet, but it was strong enough to ripple across the arena like a wave. The laughter that once filled the building was gone. Banty's jaw clenched. He stood straighter, speaking louder. You talk like a philosopher, he said. But I'm not done. If your God is all-powerful, why not remove evil completely? Why allow evil to exist at all? Hanan didn't hesitate. Because choice matters, he replied. If there was no freedom to choose wrong, then choosing right would have no meaning. A few audience members near the front looked stunned. The kind of stunned you see when someone hears an idea that hits a nerve. Hanan glanced toward the crowd, not like he was trying to win them, but like he was trying to reach them. Islam teaches that people are accountable, he said. If evil disappeared instantly every time it appeared, there would be no responsibility, no moral growth, and no real test. Banty tried to smirk, but it didn't look natural anymore. And prayer? He demanded. If your God is close, why do so many people feel ignored? They pray for years, and their lives stay the same. Is that closeness or silence? Hanan's expression softened. Prayer is not a business deal, he said. Islam teaches that a person may receive what they ask for, or something better, or protection from harm they never saw coming. And sometimes the reward is saved for a time when it matters even more. The arena went so quiet that even the sound of a chair shifting seemed loud. Faces in the crowd changed, some skeptical, some thoughtful, some strangely moved. Banty took a slow breath, then changed direction. You keep using the word reason, he said. People say religion shuts down the mind. Does Islam actually encourage thinking, or does it demand blind obedience? Hanan answered smoothly. Islam honors reason, he said. It invites people to reflect on the world, on their own existence, and on the signs around them. It teaches that ignoring reason leads to loss. The tone wasn't rehearsed. It sounded lived in, like he believed every word. Banty raised his voice again. If Islam is so rational, why are there criminals who call themselves Muslims? Why do some Muslim societies have corruption? Doesn't that prove your teachings fail in real life? Hanan took a steady breath. No, he said. That proves people fail, not Islam. He looked directly at Banty. A label doesn't make someone sincere. If someone lies while claiming to be honest, the problem isn't honesty. The problem is the liar. Applause spread again, louder this time. Even people who came expecting a spectacle were now responding to the clarity of the answers. Banty glanced toward the crowd, searching for the old support, but the energy had shifted. A few of his followers were still stiff and loyal, but many faces were no longer smiling. Some looked conflicted, almost uncomfortable with what they were witnessing. Banty gripped his cane, then asked a question with a colder edge. Does Islam force belief? He said. Does it compel people to accept it? Hanan shook his head. No, he replied. Islam does not force belief. It presents truth clearly and leaves the decision to the individual. Faith only has value when it is chosen. For a moment, the arena felt like time slowed down. The crowd wasn't reacting like fans at a show anymore. They were reacting like people facing something real. Banty sat back, but his shoulders were tense. He looked like a man holding a wall upright with his bare hands. You answer quickly, he said, but I have questions that will break you. Questions that make scholars stumble. Hanan didn't smile for applause. He didn't look around for approval. He simply nodded once, calm and respectful. Ask, he said. Truth does not fear questions. Banti stood again and turned to the audience like a performer calling for the final act. Now we go deeper, he announced, voice echoing through the speakers. Now we reach the questions that separate confidence from reality. He faced Hanan again, eyes sharp but no longer fully certain. If Islam is the final truth, Banti said, why did revelation come gradually? Why not deliver everything at once, complete and immediate? Hanan answered with steady clarity. Because people grow in steps, he said. Islam teaches that guidance was delivered in a way people could absorb, live by, and strengthen themselves over time. That isn't weakness. That is wisdom. A low murmur rolled through the arena. It wasn't mockery. It was recognition. Banti swallowed hard and pushed forward, voice strained. Then answer this, he said. If your God is loving and merciful, why create hell at all? Hanan's voice remained gentle, but firm. Because mercy without justice is not mercy, he said. If evil had no consequence, victims would have no hope, and injustice would rule forever. Islam teaches that real justice matters. Banti paced a few steps, trying to shake off the pressure building inside him. You make it sound simple, he muttered. But I still haven't heard something that truly shakes certainty. Hanan looked at him with calm sincerity. Then ask what you truly fear to ask, he said softly. Not what sounds strong. What is real? Banti stopped moving. For a brief moment, his eyes flickered with something deeper than anger, something dangerously close to doubt. The cameras caught it and the arena felt it. No one laughed. No one shouted. They waited because everyone could sense it now. This was no longer a debate for entertainment. This was a battle between pride and honesty, and it was moving toward a moment where something inside Banti would either collapse or transform. Banti returned to his chair slowly, but he didn't sit the way he had earlier, relaxed and triumphant. Now he sat like someone carrying weight. His cane angled against the table as if it had become more than a prop. The arena remained locked in silence, a silence that felt almost physical, pressing down on every row. He cleared his throat and tried to rebuild the wall of certainty around himself. You speak well, he said, forcing a confident tone. But I won't pretend you've won anything. I have questions that will end this. Hanan didn't respond with pride. He simply waited, hands resting gently on the Qur'an, posture straight and respectful. The cameras held on him, the boy's calmness almost unsettling against the scale of the crowd. Banti raised his voice for the audience. Religion is not revelation, he announced. Religion is culture. It changes with time. It is built by societies, shaped by history, edited by politics. He pointed toward Hanan. Islam is no different. It is a product of its era, not a message from God. A few voices in the crowd murmured in support, but it was weaker than before. Most people just watched, uncertain which way the ground was moving under them. Hanan tilted his head slightly, as if acknowledging the seriousness of the claim. Anything born from human culture changes, he said. But Islam teaches that its foundation does not shift with trends or pressure. Banti scoffed. So you're claiming your religion is untouched by history? He demanded. That it never evolved? Hanan answered carefully, like he was choosing each word, so the meaning couldn't be twisted. Islam teaches one God, accountability, worship, and moral responsibility, he said. Those core beliefs do not change. Human societies change. Fashion changes. Politics change. But truth does not need updates. A long pause stretched across the arena. On the giant screens, Banti's face looked tense, almost tight around the eyes. Banti shifted his argument, voice rising again. Even if I accept that, he said, people are different. Cultures are different. What is truth for one place cannot be truth for every place. Maybe there are many truths. Hanan's reply came with quiet precision. If everything is true, he said, then the word true becomes meaningless. He looked toward the audience, speaking to them as much as to Banti. Truth is something stable, he said. Something consistent. Something that can stand up to questions in every time and place. Banti's lips tightened, and he stood again, trying to regain momentum with a different weapon. Fine, he said. Then let's talk about science. The universe is the territory of science, not scripture. Holy books are filled with myths and symbolism. They don't belong in scientific discussions. A few heads nodded, relieved that he'd moved into territory they thought would crush the boy. Even some neutral observers leaned forward, expecting Hanan to stumble. Hanan didn't rush. He didn't posture. He simply asked a question back, and the simplicity of it made the arena even quieter. Are you sure, he said gently, that Islam is in conflict with science? Banti laughed, but it sounded strained. Absolutely, he said. Ancient religious books cannot compete with modern knowledge. Hanan nodded once. Then that means you've studied it deeply, he said. Banti stopped smiling. His eyes narrowed. The crowd reacted with a low murmur, as if they felt the trap closing. It wasn't an insult, but it forced an uncomfortable reality into the open. Hanan continued, keeping his tone respectful. Islam teaches that the universe has signs, he said, that the world isn't random, and that reflection leads people to recognize purpose. He didn't quote anything word for word, but he described ideas with careful accuracy. He spoke about how Islamic teaching describes the heavens and the earth as having a beginning, a moment of separation after being connected, and how modern science also speaks about an origin point for the universe. He explained it like someone describing a well-known concept, not trying to win with flashy language. A few people in the audience exchanged looks. A man in the front row, wearing a press badge, stopped taking notes and just stared. Hanan went on, describing how Islamic teaching speaks of the universe expanding, a concept that matches what astronomers observe today. He didn't claim it as a magic trick. He presented it as a sign that the faith encourages study, not ignorance. Banti opened his mouth to laugh it off, but the sound didn't come out clean. Coincidence, he said quickly. Any text can be interpreted in many ways. Hanan's response was soft, but it carried like a blade. One coincidence can happen, he said, but too many precise alignments stop looking like coincidence. He asked another question, not loudly, not aggressively. Have you ever seen another ancient text, he said, that speaks about nature with that level of accuracy, and still calls people to worship one God, live morally, and use reason? Banti went silent. The crowd went silent with him. The silence didn't feel like a victory for Hanan. It felt like a door opening for people in the audience who had never allowed themselves to consider the possibility. Banti's face tightened in frustration. You're just memorizing, he snapped. You're repeating things you heard. You're a child. You're not thinking. Hanan's expression didn't change. Truth isn't measured by age, he replied. It's measured by evidence. The crowd reacted immediately. Applause, louder and sharper. Even people who didn't agree with Islam respected the composure. The boy's calmness made Banti's anger look reckless. Banti turned his head toward the applause as if it physically insulted him. So now the arena worships a child? He hissed. Hanan didn't take the bait. He kept his voice steady. Islam teaches that worship belongs to God alone, he said, and that thinking is part of faith, not the enemy of it. Banti paced again, faster this time, the pressure visible. Sweat glistened near his temples under the stage lights. His hand tightened around the cane as if it was the only thing stopping him from shaking. Then he stopped abruptly, and the tone of his voice changed. It was still sharp, but it carried desperation now. I will not accept any religion that claims it is the only truth, he said. That kind of certainty is arrogance. Hanan looked at him with something that wasn't mockery and wasn't fear. It was compassion. A claim can be arrogant, he said, or it can be honest. He spoke to the whole arena again. A true religion doesn't ask people to worship humans, he said. It calls people to worship the Creator. Banti's breath grew heavier. He stared at the boy like he was trying to break him with his eyes, but what he saw back was calm restraint. Hanan continued, still gentle. The hardest part of truth, he said, is that it doesn't care about pride. It doesn't flatter status. It doesn't bend for reputation. The crowd was so quiet that you could hear the soft hum of the speakers. Banti took a step back. His confidence had become something else, an exhausted defense. His eyes were glassy now, and he blinked harder than he needed to, as if fighting against a reaction he refused to show in public. Hanan didn't press forward with cruelty. He didn't declare victory. Instead, he said something that landed differently than every argument before it. I didn't come here to destroy you, he said. I came here to free you from hatred. Banti's throat tightened. He looked away for a brief second, and that tiny movement felt like a crack across the entire arena. People in the audience sensed it at the same moment. The monk's shoulders trembled. His lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. His hand rose toward his face, and he quickly lowered it again, trying to hide what was happening inside him. The boy remained seated, small in body but immense in presence, as the arena watched the impossible unfolding in real time. Banti's eyes finally filled, and one tear slipped down before he could stop it. The crowd didn't cheer. No one laughed. It was too human for that. Banti closed his eyes for a long moment, as if he had been fighting something for years and suddenly realized the fight was inside him, not on the stage. When he opened his eyes again, they weren't filled with triumph anymore. They were filled with confusion, fear, and something that looked a lot like the beginning of honesty. He whispered into the microphone, voice breaking at the edge. I haven't lost, he said, but it didn't sound like confidence. It sounded like someone begging himself to believe it. Hanan looked at him quietly and answered in a voice barely above normal speech. If something is true, he said, it stays standing. If it is false, it collapses on its own. Banti stared at him, breathing heavy, and for the first time all night, the great debater looked small under the lights. The arena remained frozen as Banti stood there trembling, and everyone understood the same thing at once. This wasn't the end. This was the moment before the final fall. Banti stood still for a long moment, as if the stage floor had turned unstable beneath him. The bright lights that once made him look untouchable now made every tremor in his hands impossible to hide. The arena remained silent, not out of fear, but out of respect for the seriousness of what was unfolding. He swallowed hard and forced his shoulders back. Enough, he said, trying to recover the command in his voice. This has gone on long enough. He lifted a trembling finger toward Hanan. Now I will ask the final set of questions. The ones that will end this tonight. The crowd shifted, the sound of thousands of people breathing together filling the space like a low tide. Cameras tightened their focus. The giant screens showed Banti's eyes, glossy with something he refused to name. Banti's voice rose again, louder than necessary. First question, he said. If your God is truly merciful, why create hell? Hanan didn't flinch. Because mercy does not erase justice, he replied. A world where evil faces no consequence is not mercy. It is cruelty toward the innocent. He spoke slowly, making sure the meaning was clear. Islam teaches that people are responsible for their choices, and that accountability protects the value of goodness. Banti nodded stiffly, as if he would not allow himself to feel the weight of that answer. He rushed forward. Second question, he said. If your God is all-powerful, why is there suffering everywhere? Tears, poverty, disease, war. Why allow any of it? Hanan's gaze softened. Because hardship can shape the soul, he said. Islam teaches that trials are not proof of hatred. They are part of the test of this world. He held his voice steady. And Islam teaches that patience, courage, and goodness are not meaningless. Nothing is lost. Justice comes in full, even if not immediately. Banti's breathing grew heavier. He pressed on, like someone sprinting away from his own thoughts. Third question, he said. If the Qur'an is truly from God, why do so many people reject it? Why do so many hate Islam? Hanan answered with calm certainty. Because popularity doesn't define truth, he said. Islam teaches that people often resist what challenges their pride, their habits, or their comfort. He glanced briefly at the audience. Sometimes the hardest thing is not understanding truth, but accepting what truth demands. Banti's hands tightened around the microphone so hard his knuckles looked pale. He blinked rapidly, his composure thinning. "Fourth question," he said, voice lower now. "If your God is one, why doesn't he appear directly? Why doesn't he show himself so doubt ends?" Hanan paused, letting the question breathe. "Because God is not a creature," he said gently. Islam teaches that the Creator is beyond comparison, beyond human limits. He spoke carefully, choosing words that could reach both the mind and the heart. "We don't see gravity, but we live under its force. We don't see the wind, but we feel its power. In the same way, God's existence is known through signs, not through a physical form." The arena felt like it had stopped moving. People who came expecting an argument now looked like they were witnessing something intimate, something private, unfolding in public. Banti's lips trembled. His voice dropped further, and the anger drained away. "Fifth question," he whispered. "If Islam is truth, why am I only understanding any of this now?" His eyes began to fill again. "Why did I live with hatred for so long?" Hanan didn't look triumphant. He didn't look satisfied. He looked like a child holding a lantern for someone lost in the dark. "Islam teaches that guidance belongs to God," he said softly, "and that people find it when their hearts become honest enough to seek it." His voice remained steady. "Maybe you didn't hate Islam itself. Maybe you hated an image of it that was built from distance, rumors, and fear." The crowd was trembling with emotion now. Some people covered their mouths. Others wiped their faces quietly. Banti stood frozen, the microphone hanging in his hand as if it suddenly weighed too much. Then Hanan moved, not with victory, but with respect. He straightened in his chair and spoke politely. "Sir," he said, "may I ask you a few questions?" Banti didn't answer, but he didn't stop him either. His eyes stayed locked on the boy, wide and overwhelmed. Hanan's first question was simple, and it landed like a truth that couldn't be dodged. "Have you ever honestly studied the Qur'an?" he asked. With an open mind, Banti's lips parted, but no sound came. His silence answered for him. The arena stayed still, as if everyone was afraid to interrupt that moment. Hanan asked the second question, still gentle, still respectful. "Was your hatred built on knowledge?" he said. "Or was it inherited from the people around you?" Banti's face tightened, and his shoulders shook once. A quiet collapse that he tried to hide. He failed. Tears began to rise again. Hanan asked the third question, voice low, like he didn't want to embarrass him. "During all the years you attacked Islam," he said, "did your heart ever feel truly at peace?" Banti's head lowered. A small shake of his head answered. "No peace. No relief. Only struggle." Hanan asked the fourth question, and by now the entire arena felt like a living thing holding its breath. "If there is a faith," he said, "that calls people to worship one God, live with honesty, protect the weak, and treat others with justice, why hate it?" Banti's hand rose to his face, and he covered his mouth as his breathing broke. The last wall inside him was collapsing, not because he was forced, but because he could no longer defend what he had never truly understood. Hanan's fifth question came quietly, but it cut deeper than any argument that night. "If God is knocking on your heart right now," he said, "will you reject him only to protect your reputation?" Banti's knees gave out. In full view of thousands of people, the great Banti Yadi Pandey fell to the stage floor. Not dramatically, not for show. He dropped like someone whose strength had finally run out. His shoulders trembled, and his tears became audible through the microphones. No one laughed. No one mocked. The arena, once filled with arrogance and noise, became a place of stunned humanity. Banti looked up, his face wet, his voice broken. "I was wrong," he whispered. "I was wrong for years." He shook his head, as if speaking to his past self. "My hatred was born from ignorance, and my heart has been empty." Hanan stood and walked to him without fear. He didn't stand over him like a winner. He reached down like a child who didn't want anyone to stay lost. He offered his hand. Banti held it with trembling fingers. His voice cracked as he spoke into the microphone again. "If the God you worship is truly one," he said, "and if the Qur'an is truly his message, then I don't want to live in arrogance anymore." The arena erupted not with mockery, but with emotion. People cried openly now. Even some of the monks sitting near the stage had gone still, faces unreadable, eyes wide. Banti looked at Hanan one last time, and the pride that once ruled his expression was gone. In its place was surrender, humble and shaking. Then he spoke the testimony of faith, slowly and clearly, in front of his followers and the entire nation watching. When he said the name of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said it with respect, like someone speaking the truth for the first time. The arena exploded with joy. People stood. Some shouted words of gratitude. Others cried harder. The sound of celebration rose like a wave that wouldn't stop, rolling through the building again and again. But on stage, Hanan didn't celebrate like a champion. He didn't raise his arms. He didn't smile with pride. He simply cried quietly, tears of relief, because for him the victory was not humiliating an opponent. It was watching a hardened heart finally soften and return to truth. As the lights shone down on the two of them, the boy and the monk, the crowd understood what they had witnessed. It wasn't just a debate. It was a turning point, and long after the cameras stopped, long after the arena emptied, the story of that night would travel far beyond those walls. Because sometimes guidance arrives through the person no one expects, speaking with patience, clarity, and mercy.